I'm Phoebe. Welcome back to my channel. During August, I didn't do much in regards to writing, but September has been the total opposite because I'm really excited about NaNoWriMo, which is in November, and I have a project, actually 2 projects that I really want to get to and start writing now, but if I write them now, I won't have anything to write in November because I'll end up burning myself out. I'm not a planner. I usually just like to jump straight into my projects and write whatever comes to mind. That doesn't work for doing NaNoWriMo with a story when you've already got the idea in August, September, and you want to write that in November. So for the first time in a very, very long time, I've been planning out my stories, and my first story, which is a pirate story, was supposed to be a self-contained story, and it has developed into a 5-book series, but I only plan to write the first 4 books during NaNoWriMo. The 5th book, I feel that I need to know what's going to happen in the first 4 books first, and then work out what happens in the 5th book, because I know it needs a 5th book to tie everything together. That's still coming together at the moment, and maybe it'll come together in the next few weeks before NaNoWriMo starts, but at this stage I have no idea what that is, so I don't plan on that 5th book. It's a story that I want to turn into a choose your own adventure story because I've got lots of other branch off ideas for this story, and I have been writing them down as those ideas come, going, ooh, what if my characters made this decision at this point instead? So after I've finished NaNoWriMo, I want to give myself a break in December and January or February next year. The goal is to then compile everything that I have together for this project and see if I can make a choose your own adventure story, because that's one of my favorite types of books, and I've always wanted to write one, and I haven't had an idea before now that I thought could actually work for once. I'm excited to give that a go. It may not work, it may work, and even no matter what the outcome is, it's going to be a learning experience for me. I have a second project that's completely separate from my pirate series because I just can't work on one project non-stop. I have to have something else to bounce to, and I'd originally planned for my story to bounce to be a fan fiction, and a fan fiction that I've already started and need to get completed, but instead I was looking over my old stories that I'd already started years and years ago. I've got 5 or 6 original stories that I've got to a certain point but haven't been able to get any further because either that idea I've seen overdone in other fiction since I started these stories originally, or I just didn't know my characters or didn't know my settings enough and needed to do research and then just never got past that research point. So going through those stories, I found one that I hadn't actually planned to start working on again, but I had another idea in my head. I was like, I want to write a story with vampires because I've always liked vampire stories. If you look at my other channel, one of my first videos is on the TV series Young Dracula. I like the more traditional vampires, and like I want to write a traditional vampire story, and I was planning it to be a whole complete new story, but instead I was looking at my space dystopian that I have, and I was like, I wonder if I can have traditional vampires in my space story. So once the idea started niggling in my head, I couldn't let the idea go. So I've been writing down that idea and how to change my dystopian space story to include these vampires that are traditional vampires, and it's set in the future, so traditional vampires a couple of 100 years in the future, and it's just been knitting itself together better than I thought it would. So that's now going to be my bounce to story when I need a break from my pirate story. So the breaks just help with, while I'm working on one story, I'm thinking about another story, and then I don't get that mental fatigue that I get if I'm just trying to work on one story the whole time, because I've got something else to go to, and usually by the time I'm sick of that story and drained on that story, I can go back to my original story. Because these stories are in my head now, I want to write them both out now, but I'm trying not to. I'm trying to piece everything together for Nano. But to keep myself interested in these stories and to make sure that I am still writing, because if I stop writing, it'll be harder to get myself back into daily writing. So what I have been doing is I've been working on the backstory for my two main characters in my pirate story. And I also plan to write out the backstory for my villain, and I want these stories to go to the point of when the story actually starts. So I'll know more about the world, I'll know where my characters came from, I'll know what they've been doing, so I'll have all this story for them already written out before I get to my main story. So just things that don't even matter, little fluffy things about like going swimming for the first time, going on walks, going to the beach, just things to develop them, little short stories, some things that are intertwined together, just so I know them. That's what I did for Camp Nano. I chose a heap of prompts that I thought would help develop my characters, and I started writing them out. So I've just continued on with doing that, except putting them into chronological order for my two characters for when I think those events will have happened, and filling little things in between, and it's going well. I've chosen to do the backstories for my characters in notebooks. I don't like writing by hand. I haven't done handwriting in a many number of years, but I do find it fun to go through my old notebooks of when I was handwriting stories just to see what I'd written. I find that more fun to go through than going through my old stories on the computer, because they're in the most raw form and I can't edit them and change things, and I like seeing that even though I haven't done it for years. A part of handwriting those stories is because I can't take my typewriter to work and type during my lunch breaks, so I want something portable that I can take to work and write in my lunch breaks with. Before, during my lunch breaks, I was writing on my iPad and then transferring my files to my phone, and I will be doing that during Nano. During Nano, I'll be taking my iPad to work and I'll be writing on the iPad and transferring the files to my main Scrivener file from my iPad for the sake of my word counts. But in the meantime, I'm writing by hand to try and reduce the amount of time I'm in front of screens, to reduce the migraines that I get. Not all my migraines are caused by being in front of the screens, but a lot of them are. I'm light sensitive and they make them worse when I'm in front of a computer screen. Like I mentioned before, I'm doing Nano on the computer just for the ease of word counts. I would have liked to use my typewriter because I want to do an entire draft on my typewriter, but just for Nano, that's not really convenient because it'll take time out of my day going back and counting my words to see how much writing I've done. And I'm aiming for a double Nano. I want to do 100,000 words, and I'm not counting 100,000 words that's typed out on a typewriter or written by hand. So I'll be doing Nano on my computer. And with my handwriting, I have decided that one of my main characters, the main character who's speaking to me the most, I've been writing out with my right hand, and my character who was supposed to be the main character, but I've been having a bit more trouble with her, I'm writing out with my left hand. So in my original plan for this story, I planned to have just one main character, but my second main character, he spoke to me more than my female main character did. So I ended up with two main characters, and I want to write their stories equally so they have equal input to one another. I don't want it to be, the other character who I didn't plan to be the main character is the main character and she's just an important side character. I want them to both be important. So, and another reason for doing the two-handed writing is when my right hand cramps, I can swap to my left hand and just keep going with the writing. My hands cramp up really, really easily, and I need to keep writing. I don't want it to be a hindrance to have to stop because my hand cramped up. So I swap to the other hand, and then by the time it's recovered, I can usually swap back again and keep going. And my left-handed writing has improved slightly since I started doing this. I used to be able to write with both my hands when I was younger, and I could write with them equally well. It was natural to write with both when I was younger, but when I was at school, anytime they caught me writing with my left hand, they'd make me write with my right hand because they knew I could write with my right hand. So it was not encouraged for me to keep being ambidextrous like I was when I was younger. And I kind of want that back. It's like when I'm in the kitchen, when I'm chopping things up in the kitchen, I'll usually just use the knife in whatever hand I pick it up. So I can do nearly everything else with my left hand. It's just my writing with my left hand's gotten terrible over the years from not writing with my left hand. This is the most planning that I have ever done for a story. I feel like I really know my characters and my world now. And last year when I did Nano, I didn't know who my characters were. I didn't know my world. It was the first time I'd tried to do my own stories in years and years and years. I'd been living in fanfiction land for so long, and I'd got so used to playing with other characters that already existed in worlds that already existed that when it came to building my own worlds and my own characters, I'd lost the ability that I used to have to create characters and worlds. But after forcing myself to do Nano last year with original stories only, which has been my hardest Nano ever, and I made sure after Nano to keep on with my original stories, this year I feel that I can do Nano with my original stories up to my normal word count goals that I normally get. And I usually try to aim for a double Nano, but I don't think I've actually done a double Nano before. I know I've got months where I've had well over 120,000, but I don't think they've ever been during Nano months. I think they've been like October and May, stuff like that, before camps. And I seem to have more words in my head before camp and before Nano starts than during actual Nano itself. Hopefully this year because I have lots of words in my head already and that I'm not letting myself write those words down, hopefully I'll get those words out really, really quickly. I have done this before with Nano, with a fan fiction a couple of years ago. I put bans on myself at the start of the year, quite a few years in a row, to not starting new fan fiction, because I have too many that I need to get completed, and the guilt eats away at me when I see all these started stories that I haven't finished. So with the previous Nano, it used to be my month that I'd allow myself to start a new story, and I had this story that had been eating at me for months and months and months. It wanted me to write it down, and the year I did that for Nano, finally let myself write it down. I had 50k in 10 days. I had 50k in 5 days. It's the fastest I've ever done 50k before. I think I got to 75,000 words that year. I'm not 100% sure, but I got that in 2 weeks, and then I did no writing for the rest of the month. So I'm hoping not to burn myself out in the first 2 weeks. I want a lot of words and I want them as quickly as possible, but I also don't want to end up with an entire month where I finished Nano in a week, but I haven't done any writing for the rest of the 3 weeks. So my actual goal is to finish first drafts for the 5 stories that I'd mentioned and to write the entire month. And because of the fact I got 5 drafts, if I don't finish them all, it's not the end of the world, but I'd like to finish at least 2 of the drafts for the pirate stories bare minimum, and my vampire dystopian I want to finish. So yeah, that's my plans for Nano, and I'm gonna keep prepping in the meantime.